Life is hectic, demanding, and doesn't stop. When honest with ourselves, we must confess we often don't know what the hell we're doing. The Larkcast is an ongoing conversation about the inclusive and mischievous nature of God's presence through the lens of all the things that make up this phenomenon we refer to as life. Astonishing grace and refreshing honesty collide right here for your weekly encouragement.
Welcome back to the Larkcast. You are joined by me, I'm Tony, and Russ is here with us after a week out. You're back, bro. Welcome back.
Back, man. I'm back. I'm alive. I'm breathing. Sun's shining. There's still clutter everywhere. I'm still dealing with a house project, but I'm back.
But it's better. It's not as it's not as chaotic. You actually you had space and time to podcast this week.
Yes. Yep. Very true.
That's good, man. Welcome back. Good to have you back here. I know that last week we did a replay of one of our favorite episodes, one of our most listened to episodes, and definitely worthy of a repeat. But it's always good to be back in studio.
Yeah, man. Yeah, there's something fun about it. Ain't gonna lie. People are like, why do you guys podcast? I'm like, because it's fun. Because it's fun to catch up and get on here and dice up some scriptures and unveil all of our inadequacies, celebrate the goodness of God in the midst of them, and just encourage people.
Yeah, man, for sure.
So it's good
pre-show we were kind of talking, we have house, each of us have house stuff going on, but it's very different. Yours was forced upon you by a natural disaster. Mine was forced upon me by two teenage boys who can't share a room anymore. So I'm converting my lower level into a bedroom for my wife and I, so that my boys don't fist fight every month from sharing a bedroom.
Yeah, dude. Come to think about it, though, I think having to remodel a room because of two teenage boys living together does constitute a natural disaster.
Well, testosterone is very natural, and it tends to cause disaster. So yeah, yes. Absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely. So before we dive into this next conversation in John 9, because we're continuing in our conversation through the Gospel of John. That's what we've been doing for the last good number of podcasts here on the Larkcast. There's a number of things coming up and things people can jump into, Lark related, Lark community related, and just tee some of that up for us, man. Let everybody know what's going on.
Yeah, thanks, man. I'll do it quickly. We got the Reclaim cohort that we announced actually did really well. We were hoping to get one started and wound up with basically two that filled up. So people, man, coming out of the woodwork with just a desire to not just know they're free, but to be able to help others live free right where they are. So one way I like to describe it is, if you've ever wanted to relearn Christianity as a life of grace and the church as the way of friendship, that's this. And so people signed up, they came out, man. And so those are going right now. That's pretty awesome. Shout out to that. Two, we Fallen and Free conference is coming up. That's something that a friend of ours, Tolian Chavijan, has started. It's going to be held in Jupiter in February. Honored to be able to speak at this conference. It's definitely centered around what does it really mean to grab onto grace, and just to be able to live in that transparency, man, in your life and in your story from it. So if you're interested in that, by all means, check out, I think it's fallenandfree.com. So that's nice. Just another little quick announcement.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested in that. I'm probably like 95% sure I'm gonna be there. So if you want to come kick it with us at that conference, come on. I'm sure we'll have plenty of time to sneak some food, drink, and cigars and laughs in.
Yeah, that's gonna, I think it's gonna be our part. We're gonna kind of be hanging out in the lobby and just saying to everybody, like, hey, conference only lasts for so long. But the party, man, that's what we're really all here for. So
I'm getting Paul's all drunk, dude. That's my goal.
Wow.
me, my my goal at the end of the fall to free conference is to have very compromising pictures with myself and Paul all on my phone.
Which leads into my next quick announcement, which is fundraising. And how we can use these things to extort dollars to empower the spread of God's scandalous grace.
If we could stop extorting people for money so that we could continue doing ministry, that'd be great. So please legitimize our ministry by just donating money so we don't have to blackmail people anymore.
This will be good and pleasing unto the Lord. So, but yes, on a serious note, it is fall. And one of the things that just as a nonprofit organization that is really committed to the spread of good news, the training of people, okay, and spending time with people, man, helping them really reframe their stories in good news, reach out to neighbors. And that takes time. And that time and that travel, right, that goes into that takes dollars. And that's how we do this work. So just with that commitment, man, to just keep doing this work and to be able to offer it for free, the resources, the relationships, man, that comes through a collective of generous givers.
Yes.
So if you've been blessed by the Larkcast, if you've gone to the Lark site and found courses and primers and other things that we've been able to put out, please, by all means, join us in this. Go to the give page at larksite.com. You can give, and we have people who give $10 a month to people who give a lot more than that.
10 million
even from a sacrificial, that would be nice if that's you.
That would be amazing.
Standpoint, but I mean, every dollar counts, man. So,
yes, and shout out to those who have been supporting us from day one and those who have been supporting us for one day.
Yes,
we love and appreciate all of you. Thank you for giving to this. Okay, John chapter 9. What I found is like it's challenging going through John's gospel and like reading all these passages, and like sometimes the bigger story and what's going on gets kind of like lost in like, you know, just reading every single passage. And there's a lot we want to get to, a lot we want to say. And so in John 9, I'm just going to kind of tee up the story. I'm just going to tee up kind of like the scene going on here. And then we're just going to kind of cherry pick some of the more important passages, noteworthy passages as the conversation goes on. But this is a pretty popular one here in John 9 because it's Jesus healing of the man who was born blind, which back in the day, Born Blind was a killer Christian hardcore band. I used to have this Born Blind. It was like, this is back when hardcore kids were wearing basketball jerseys. And it was Born Blind in dice, dude. It was like Born Blind in dice, and had like the tattoo letters and everything. Dude, I rocked that thing till it died, till like I had to throw it away. But if you've been around the conversation at all in the scriptures, or if you've even attended church with your grandparents, or even as a kid or whatever, most likely you've heard this story. It's a pretty famous one, and there's a line from the song Amazing Grace, where it derives that from, this passage. And so the scene starts off with Jesus. He is it's getting pretty hot and heavy with his relationship with the Pharisees, not in a sexual way. Usually we bring up hot and heavy like that, and this is definitely going to get edited out because this is really just like, kind of took a really, really bad turn right here. Jesus' relationship with the Pharisees is getting pretty intense, man. And they, as already noted, they want to kill him. They want him gone. And they are not only are they unbelieving, they're doubling down in the unbelief. And now all of a sudden they're becoming blind in this unbelief, which is a really interesting contrast in this story. But Jesus, it's the Sabbath. And as you know, Jesus and the Sabbath, right? It's been the backdrop like since John 5 of his healing of a man who was born lame. And they're so bent out of shape that he would do this thing on the Sabbath. So now in John chapter 9, there's another healing, and this is also on the Sabbath. And so Jesus at this point he's being very intentional to pick fights with these guys and really escalate the action. If you have this idea of Jesus as this like passive, just kind of like, I'm just kind of minding my own business, not really like causing any waves or troubles or anything. Nope. Here's Jesus again with another healing intentionally on the Sabbath. Okay. So Jesus is definitely in the mix and escalating things. So here's this guy, he's born blind from birth. And Jesus comes to him and he heals him, and he uses these very kind of like natural means to do it. He spits into the ground, makes mud, covers his eyes, and the man, his sight is restored. And stop me if you've heard this one, but instead of the entire community and city, right, and village, or wherever they are, they're this guy's community, instead of toasting and celebrating the fact that this guy can now see, there's a religious trial and a religious investigation.
Yeah, man, you come out of, coming out of 8, you have this scene where Jesus is going head to head with the religious leaders, and he just tells them, man, before Abraham, I am, that it was me, the maker, the sustainer of all things, right, the writer of the law that you're pointing to, it's me. And so I think just coming out of that, and then you see Jesus then intentionally healing this man on the Sabbath. And the thing to me where I don't know why, man, but in my mind, like looking at this whole story, it didn't so much go to Jesus doing this again, which we've already seen, right, in John chapter 5 and on. It didn't even go to like the blind man or his family, which I think there's some important pieces for us to get into on that. The thing that really hit me was the attention that the religious leaders put on this and why they began to engage in the conversation.
Yeah.
Because here it's not so much this pushback about the Sabbath at first, right? It's the initial thing that's going on here is, why was this man born blind? You said before Abraham was you, so you clearly know more than we do. So let's spin this whole situation and tell us why he was born blind.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like this sort of karma-esque, you know what I mean, religious understanding of the world. These guys are so convinced that God works like karma. He works in this way of punishing those that need to be punished and letting go of those who didn't, and letting people off over here because they did this penance work over there. And so the whole idea of a Messiah coming to right the world through his own cross doesn't make sense when your religious view of how God operates in the world is like karma.
Yeah, John chapter 9 kicks off with it's seeing a man born blind, what you're referring to. Well, who sinned, this guy or his parents, that he would be like this? And it is kind of crazy that like they just kind of like blatantly just say it like that, like whose fault? They want to just point a finger at that. And it's like we do the same thing, now, but it's a little bit more subtle. Yeah.
And you wonder if like just the whole thing really just stems down to, there's no room for mystery with these guys. There's no room for a God who works in mystery, because just the religious nature and its desire for control, it needs mastery. We need to be able to master everything, every thought, every act, every feeling, everything. And if we can master these things, and we can avoid suffering, we can know why they're suffering over here. We can avoid this over here and punish, right, these people over there. And it's like, there's this whole thing that's going on. And it just, for me, that was just stood out for the first time, man. I guess is what I'm getting at. I've never really honed in on that in this chapter before.
Yeah. And I think that we should dive a little bit more into that as a framing thought for this. And I like how you're framing it. Mastery, right? Grabbing hold of your religion, grabbing hold of your own destiny. And where you are, where you're not, is in control, and it's in your hands. Whereas faith forces us to look outside of ourselves and to trust and rest in someone else. It's the opposite of control. It's the opposite of having all the answers. I guess that's why these dudes ended up with like hundreds of additional laws when they started with 10, right? It's like, here's 10.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden we have 500, different things you can't do, which is why they're that religious impulse, that mastery you're talking about is why they're so bent out of shape of Jesus actually doing something miraculous on the actual Sabbath. And I
Yeah.
love this because they keep pressing this dude. Like, who healed you? Like, line them all up, right? Almost like like you see in the movies, line them up and point out, put numbers above their head and point them out. And it's like, bro, I was blind when this happened. Like, I didn't see his face.
Right.
I don't know.
Since I was born this way, and I don't even know what a face is, it's probably not going
I've
to
never
remember
seen anything in my life, and you're wanting me to point someone out in all of freaking Jerusalem. This is the first time I'm seeing any of these people.
Well, that one looks a little different than that one.
So crazy. So they're just like, they will not stop harassing these people. And the
Yeah.
parents get involved, and you can just see the fear with the parents, with the Pharisees. And so, man, it's like, if you, I get it. Like, reading the Gospels, you might be like, dang, man, like, why are these people so fearful, like, of this thing? And like, why are they so fearful of like being thrown out of the synagogue and losing their, kind of like standing with this group? Like, screw these people, man, like, move on to a different community. And I think one of the things you have to understand is like, this was the only community. This was it. It's not
This
like
was it.
today where you have like a myriad of different Facebook groups and different subcultures and all kinds of different groups and things that you can kind of like, dive into. This was it, man. This was absolutely it. And to be removed from this community, to be kicked out of this community meant everything. And so you feel that fear, with the parents in particular as we're going on here.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because it's like this guy's brought to the religious leaders for wisdom as to how this happened. Okay. And they immediately dismiss it because it happened on the Sabbath. Oh, this
Mhm.
happened on the Sabbath. He's clearly not from God. This is clearly
Right.
not from God. Even though we've already said that this is impossible without God, this is now clearly not from God because it happened outside of the realm of what we think we can control. And you're right, right? The parents get brought into it, man. And in the scriptures, like if you look in John chapter 9, in other passages, you see this like order that's gone forward from the religious leaders that anyone who was aligning with Jesus being the Messiah, with him being the Christ, was put out of the synagogue. And you're right in the sense that that was to lose everything.
Mhm.
And so you almost feel bad for the parents here. Because on one hand, they're staring at a son who was born blind in a culture where they were taught that their son is blind, was born
Mhm.
this way, okay, because of some sin in their life. That there's something that's gone on that they've done that's resulted in this. This is the thinking, man.
Yeah.
And so they don't even have a chance to even rejoice over this, dude.
Mhm.
They're immediately staring down the barrel of, hey, if you attest this to this being the work of God, therefore Jesus must be God in the flesh here in and among us,
Mhm.
you're going to lose your entire livelihood. Your
Yeah.
business, over, man. Your friend
Yeah.
circle, over. The parties, the gatherings, the festivities that you've known your whole life, gone. Everything you've ever known, man, pulled out from underneath your feet. You're a pariah now in a community
Dude,
that
religion
you can't.
ruins everything, man.
Oh, bro,
It just
it's
sucks. Like, look at this.
brutal.
Like, not only the framing idea of like, well, who sinned, this guy or his parents? And for his
Yep.
parents to carry the shame their entire life, like to introduce their son to people. And the first
Mhm.
thought you can see what's going through their head is like, what did you do here? Right. And maybe they don't
Yep.
say it, but they can like see it on their face. So they're carrying the shame. And all of a sudden there's this like awesome thing, like amazing thing. And they can't even enjoy it for a single second. They find themselves right in the middle of a
Yep.
religious interrogation, threatened with the removal of, good standing in the community that they want to be a part of.
Yeah, it's
all because of the hatred that these guys have for this dude
yeah,
and the love of mastery of their religion.
yep. Yeah, it made me kind of like feel for the parents for sure, feel for this dude who's like being able to see for the first time in his life. You know what I mean? He's probably just wanting to, connect with the person who actually did this. And, all this is going down. And I started thinking about it and then just kind of making a few notes. I wrote down this thought: religion robs freedom. Religion robs freedom because baked into it is a need for interrogation before celebration.
Mm-hmm.
It's baked into it. All right. It's in everything. And I feel like it works threefold, and I'll make this quick. First, there's the internal interrogation that we go through on every matter of what we think, of what we feel, of what we do, what we say, what we don't do. There's a constant internal interrogation that goes on in us through this religious filter of what we're supposed to be in the name of God. And it
So
just
we're
it
interrogating ourselves, so to speak. So it's our
yep.
own kind of
It
internal
should,
trial that we run ourselves through.
and we do it all the time. Like something beautiful happens, right? And we don't understand it. So there's a mystery to it, which is what you see in this chapter. Something beautiful can happen, and instead of being able to immediately celebrate it, the religious nature in us is drawn first to interrogating it. And I don't feel like it ends there, because you see even in this passage that the interrogation that we'll go through with fellow believers, man, when we bring up something the Lord's done. I mean, how many times have you seen somebody try to celebrate something that they felt like God did, or celebrate something they felt like that the Lord revealed to them, and watched like a group of fellow, quote unquote believers around them immediately interrogate every word, every nuance in that
Mm-hmm.
before they could even just celebrate.
Mm-hmm.
Even if what they were saying was completely foreign to what's in the scripture, at least there's a searching and a seeking that's going on here. And we
Oh,
can't even celebrate that.
you just be sitting there, looking for little, bad. You'd hang on to the most minutia of bad theology. I'm like, oh yeah, that testimony was
You
great. And
said in
I get
there,
they're all excited. I get they're all excited about this really cool thing that happened in their life. But man, when that microphone was in their hand, they said that one thing, that
yep,
one thing that was just slightly off the the orthodoxy track there. And I had to just really cling to that thing in staff
yep,
meeting on Tuesday to bring that up.
yeah, that and the pause between the end of that testimony and the first guitar chord was about 6 seconds too long.
Yeah, I get this person's never
Really
been on a
threw the
stage
morning
ever
off.
in their life. If they can really stick to our planning center notes and timeline we have here. Clearly there's a pile of them on the front row. Next time,
Yep.
grab one maybe so that you can, have a better transition between first and second service. That would be fantastic.
Yeah. But here's the thing that I'd never thought of though until now. There's a third interrogation that goes on. And this is what's crazy. This interrogation goes on even among the crowd that says there is no God. Or if there is, I don't know who he is. And that interrogation, I think, happens when we start to share what we've found, what we've discovered about Jesus, right? We go out into the world and we start to share like what we're learning, what we're seeing, and we get interrogated, right, by people around us who are hanging on to other forms of religion, whether it be politics or, right, the gym or, whatever it is that they've ascribed themselves to for meaning.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes that interrogation can even start to really dampen this sort of joyful celebration in us and sharing, man, I once was lost. I was blind, but now I see.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what all happened. I don't know how it all happened. It's a mystery.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so I know when I share this with people, people want mastery because human nature wants control. That's why we love religion.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you bring a story of mystery to people who want mastery, you're going to get interrogated.
Mm-hmm.
And not just among the believing crowd, you'll even get interrogated among the non-believing crowd. And it sort of really just kills right? Just that religious desire for control in us and around us. It takes every celebration and turns it into an interrogation.
Yeah.
And it's just sad, man. It's true, but it's sad.
There's a rabbit hole I want to go down. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but it's like, I remember the interrogation, or just, just sitting back with arms folded, and you would have, friends that don't believe. And the idea was like, well, they're separated from God. God's off in the distance. His arms are folded, his eyebrows down, and he's super pissed at these people. Like, they need to believe so that his wrath is deterred, from them. And then you come to, read the scriptures, and you're like, man, for in him we all live and breathe and move and have our being. Like, Jesus is our life. Then you go
Yep.
even a little bit farther into the Gospel of John. It's like, and in this day you will know that I'm in you and you're in me. It's like, well, Jesus isn't far from these people at all. And the entire time you're trying to complicate the good in their life. You need to kind of do pretzel theology to get around like why these good things are happening, instead of just being like, dude, yes, I celebrate this goodness in your life. And I actually know the one who's good that this is pointing to. And I just want to be your friend till the end and constantly point there and not be a religious asshole. Like, I wish I would have played it like that, like a long, long time ago. And it's like, dude, I would have a bigger stone to throw at these Pharisees if I wasn't one for a good portion, of my life. But one of the things I love about this passage is at the end, Jesus said, this is the reason I've come. Well, one is great because this dude, his life goes from like, he has this moment that's like amazing, and he gets to celebrate it for like a second. And it gets just really, really bad with this interrogation. And he has these amazing lines. Read John 9, please. Right. We're running out of time here. And I don't want to go over a half hour because I don't want to get yelled at by certain people on our team who will go unnamed. Their initials are Jameson. But he's like, why are you the guy born blind is like, why are you asking me all these questions about this guy? Do you want to be this guy's disciple too? And they're like, you were born in utter sin and you're gonna teach us. It's like, dude, who was it? Relax, bro. Relax. Like, these guys have zero chill. So anyways, they just get discarded. They end up like getting booted out of the community. And it's really cool because Jesus hears about this, finds out about it, and seeks this guy out and reveals himself.
Like, the guy gets kicked out of everything he's ever known because of the unbelief of people who practice religion, and Jesus then seeks them out.
Yeah, it's so
Man,
good. The whole podcast could be about that point right there.
Yeah.
So Jesus comes and finds this guy, and he reveals himself, not for the first time. I mean, like, facially he's able to recognize him, but this guy's already met Jesus in his healing. And he's talking to him, and it's like the Pharisees are kind of like around the corner, like listening in. They finally butt in, and he's like, oh, like, you're saying that, that we're blind. And he goes, listen, man, like, here's why I came. This is why I came. I came that those who think that they see now, right? No, he goes, I came so that those who are blind may see. So now he's going beyond this kind of like very physical, like real, like one for one literal healing. He goes, I came so that those who are blind may see. And for those who think they see, that they might become blind. And I love what Jesus is doing, because if you're on the outside looking in, you can see a lot of religious activity or even religious sentiments or conversation and stuff like that. And you might think, oh, this person's like a follower of God. This person's a follower of Jesus. But not all that is really like true and real. Like, people are not necessarily like disciples of Jesus, like dialing in on like how he's described God. They're really more like these Pharisees. They're dialed in on like church and theology and like rule keeping, or as Jesus calls them, disciples of Moses, or even as these Pharisees are self-proclaimed disciples of Moses.
Disciplines and rhythms and formulas for how to master the flesh.
the
right?
mastery of it. And I love it because he's exposing what on the surface looks like we see.
Yeah.
We're not blind. But as Jesus further describes, just the freedom, the celebration, the dance of God, the love of God for
Yeah.
people, their belief really turns out to be blindness.
Yep. Yeah.
It's a cool juxtaposition.
He's looking at these dudes and just telling them, man, you know exactly who I am. You know exactly who I am. You know how these works that I've been doing happen. You know by where they come from. You reject me, and you continually reject me. Um, and I think he's ultimately just saying to them, like, you just don't like me, man, because what I'm doing makes war on the imaginary lordship that you think you have of your life and the world around you. It's Adam and Eve in the garden all over again, man. You see me and you refuse me. And he tells them your guilt remains right there at the end. Your guilt remains because you do see who I am and
Mm-hmm.
you refuse to accept my life for your life.
Yeah.
And so he's like doing that simultaneous thing, right? He's helping the blind see, and he's helping those who think they see realize, no, you're actually blind. And it's a very gracious thing. Like we sometimes see what Jesus is doing here and think that maybe he's being um offensive. You know what I mean? Like God forbid, like that's such a a major thing right now. He's being so direct. What he's saying is just making them uncomfortable. And it's like, yeah, but it's the most loving thing he could do. He healed this guy on the Sabbath on purpose.
On purpose.
And he knew that interrogation would go down, and he knew that that it seems like he knew this interrogation would result in them saying, we were, because even the guy who was healed, dude, that guy goes to bat. You know what I'm saying, with the Pharisees. That guy calls them out on you've never even seen Moses, but you've seen this, and yet you refuse to believe. And of course, the whole way that these religious leaders define and defend themselves is with the law. And again, it kind of goes back to what we saw earlier in the chapter. Religion wants mastery, not mystery. And so it will always appeal to the law that you think you can master. It won't appeal to grace. It will always point to the law that points to what is good, never the grace of God that says, yeah, I know what's good. I wrote it and I haven't changed it, but you've never, nor will you ever keep it. And that's why I've come to accept you in my son. That's the whole point of this law. That's where it was all leading to. And now it's right in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
And you refuse to see it because in your arrogance, you're blind.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Dude.
Imagine thinking you see.
Right.
Imagine taking pride in thinking you see and judging everyone your entire life from a standpoint that you see.
Yep.
But then all of a sudden, Jesus shows up, whether in the form of a friend, self-study, however he reveals himself to you, and you come to find out, man, you don't see shit.
Right.
You're the one who's actually blind. And I think this is the kind of hard-hearted, resistant unbelief that the scriptures refer to, that kind of like unforgivable sin, so to speak, where it's like deep down, you know him, the truth, like the person himself, that is the truth. And for whatever reason, man, whether it's religious, cultural, social, personal, that you just refuse to just kind of like humble yourself under that truth and trust and take whatever implications might come, relationally, socially, culturally, whatever. You just like persist in that unbelief. And it's like, dude, if you want to go to hell, like that's not God's will.
No.
At all. But it's like, dude, if that's what you want to choose, if that's you want to keep hardening your heart towards him who comes in with a message of no condemnation. If you want to choose condemnation, I think God will grant that request.
Yeah, he seems to do it with his head hung, man, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Just this like sad look of a father who's going, why you refuse reality and want to live an eternity away from me just doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Um, but it also, and I think that's why Jesus called us to be like children, right? If you want to follow me, become like one of these, he said, one of these children, the least, the last, the lost, the little in society. And we have in a culture that's so rooted in like the winner circle, right? Admitting that we're losers at this actual law that's in front of us is hard to do until you realize that no, being a child is all you ever needed to be. And what's crazy is what we see in this passage is being a child is also the only way you'll see. It's the only way you'll see is to let go and realize he's God.
Hmm.
And just recline, man, in that goodness. That's where we see, man. That's where we live.
Amen. Well, our time is up. Good chat, John chapter 9, and the healing of the man born blind. Cheers, my dude.
Cheers to that, dude. Cheers to that. Until next time.
The celebration of grace, not the interrogation of the law. Don't be an asshole. Trust in Jesus. Till next time.